Welcome back to the Celtic Exchange. This is Tino, and this week we're bringing you our latest pre-season special as Celtic continue their tour of the US with a kick-off to the new league campaign now less than 2 weeks away. To discuss that and a whole lot more, I'm joined here by James and Paddy. James, as we know, Celtic are in the USA as we speak, but what kind of state are they in at this moment in time?
See what you did there. Very clever.
Good,
Very clever. We're on a 4 out of 10, maybe, in terms of being ready for the season. I think it's been sluggish, innit? So good to see them out, getting back in the field and getting the players through their paces. Rodgers says he's been impressed with the attitude and the performances so far and the type of football they're playing. They're playing his kind of football. So there's reasons to be cheerful. There's just work to be done behind the scenes.
So you say 4 out of 10. What are we getting the 4 for? What are we doing right at this moment in time? There's plenty of time to cover the wrongs, right? But what are we doing right at this stage?
I think getting out to America and letting your fans over there see that's a great thing, much like we did in Australia. As long as your keepers don't fall in love with any kind of Instagram models out there, that'll be brilliant.
Benji Seagrass said hello to my dog the other day.
Game over.
Nobody cares. It's just happened.
A guy that maybe nearly played for Celtic once said, "Look, your dog." Great.
That's all.
So 5 out of 10 then.
Yes.
Right. So I think speaking of keepers, that has been a great move, getting an experienced keeper in with a young keeper behind them, which was the plan with Seagrass actually. It just didn't work out. So hopefully this does, and young Finnish boy does seem to be an ambitious lad, so that's a different kettle of fish, I would say. So that's a massive positive. I think getting some of the deadwood out, there's a lot more to go, but getting some of the deadwood out, guys that were never going to play, guys who were actually a problem attitudinally, Haksabanovic, guys like that, guys who were, good attitudes like, but just, I don't think it was there for him, goes with their best wishes. I think that's all good stuff, but it just needs pace now, needs momentum and pace. A lot of fans last week said, well, the keeper's done, that's the signings in, and that's us started, and nothing since, so got to get moving.
I mean, we fell into that trap. So last week's episode was something along the lines of, is Celtic's summer spending spree about to kick into gear? And 7 days down the line, yes, we've got the goalies, which we all knew about last week, and nothing else has really happened. Paddy, I've not seen much of you since your, let's call it a mixed performance in the big end of season quiz. What's your take on things right now?
It's been pretty poor, I think. I think we're looking at the season kicking off in less than 2 weeks, and as you guys have just mentioned there, we go and fill the goalkeeping positions. I think it looks like Seagrass is about to leave as well, and I think that they'll be quite happy with their business there. For me, a lot of people are speaking about the signing of Kasper Schmeichel as a very shrewd one. He'll do a job for a season. I'm still just a little bit unsure about it. I think it just lacks a little bit of ambition. We're speaking about bringing the goalkeeper in, the Finnish lad, and we're looking at and hoping that this goalkeeper is going to be an understudy. I just don't think Celtic should be in a position where we're kind of just relaxing on that. 1 million for a goalkeeper, I'm not saying that it should be laughed at. It could be great business. We've still got to find this out, but I want a goalkeeper that's going to come in and say, no, I want the jersey from the get-go. I don't want someone that's saying I'm going to watch for the sides for a season, because the pressure then it goes on to this young guy next season if he takes the jersey is going to be massive. I just think it was quite lazy. I mentioned to some of the guys 20 weeks since Joe Hart had said that he was going to retire, and is that the best we can come up with? I take nothing away from Kasper Schmeichel. I think he's a very, very good professional, and I do think he'll do a job in the league, but we're crying out for this different level in Europe. We've been saying this for 2 seasons, and I just feel it's a bit like Groundhog Day at the moment.
So I'm making this kind of same assumption as you, and I suppose most Celtic fans, maybe yourself included, that Schmeichel, as the experienced guy, will come in and take the gloves and the boy will play the understudy. That might not be the way at all.
I hope not.
They might get into the pre-season stuff and the early season stuff, and they go, this boy's got it. It's actually Schmeichel who's going to be the cover, and the young boy who's ready. So I think at the very least he'll play a lot of football through the season, young boy, if not all. We just don't know. It would be great obviously if he does, because then he's proven himself and he can hit the ground running and play at the higher level.
My thing is with that though, I don't think Kasper Schmeichel's coming to sit on the bench at Celtic.
It's just the way it might go.
No, true.
It might go.
Listen, I get that, but he'll have been given guarantees, I believe, to come and sign for us for a season.
I wonder if the guarantee is, if you're fit and performing at the level we know you're capable of, you'll be my number one. But Kasper, football's football, and you must appreciate that if you're not doing it, we'll have somebody waiting in the wings. I'm sure conversations like that will have gone on between him and Rodgers. Rodgers, I'm sure, can be frank with a guy that he's coached before, so we need to see. But certainly from the outside looking in, it very much looks like it's Schmeichel's shirt, gloves at this moment in time with Sinisalo. Jeez, I should know his name better by now.
Yeah.
He should be the one that's maybe playing back up initially, but he'll be ambitious. He's 22. He's obviously made a move at an early stage from his home country. Found himself at Aston Villa and gone out on various loan moves to try and make a name for himself and improving the game. Some people, so I can hear, Paddy, that you're slightly cynical about it, and some people even more so are suggesting that, okay, we've got Schmeichel in and we've got Sinisalo in, but you get Schmeichel because he used to know Rodgers, and you get Sinisalo because he played at Exeter City under Gary Caldwell last season. So is that the extent of our scouting network? That's really cynical. I don't quite buy into that. But
no, that was me.
Was it yourself?
Yeah. I think there is a bit of high hopes for this goalkeeper. From all I've heard, he's just not came at the right time for him at Villa. I mean, to try and break into the first team at Aston Villa with Emilio Martinez is
I can't stand him.
I say him, but he's a great goalkeeper. He's probably the best in the world at the moment.
I think he's the number one guy in football that I dislike.
That's fine.
I really don't like him.
Let's have a conversation after this, Tino.
Anyway, let's go back to the USA tour. We've spoken about it a wee bit so far. So Celtic opened the tour with a 4-0 win against DC United on Saturday night. I sat up foolishly thinking, I'm going to stay up for this. 12:34, my TV mysteriously cut out. There are certain ways to watch the game. My TV cut out at 12:34. I went, I'm not resetting that. I don't have it in me, Paddy. The game had started okay, but I thought, nah, this is the wrong move. So I caught the goals and different highlights after. So obviously, as I say, Celtic get 4 goals in the night. Matt O'Reilly's the captain, which we'll touch on in a second. He gets 2 goals. Mikey Johnson gets a goal. James Forrest a goal. Out with the footballing aspect, though, it is a great occasion for Celtic's US-based supporters. And there's guys that we've spoke to on the show, that the likes of the Chicago CSC. I know Eddie from the Ploughboys CSC from over in Philly, Lone Star CSC, who all made the trip. And James, I think it's a huge plus for these guys to be able to see Celtic in the flesh at these moments.
Absolutely, because these guys put some shift in. I've been over in America when Celtic games have been on. I'm sure you have as well, Paddy. And you've watched with you. You're up at crack of dawn, going watching the Glasgow derbies in 31st of December and stuff like that. It's a shift. So these guys are doing that week in, week out when there's an early kick-off. So to be able to get it in your own time zone, in your own country, and to go and enjoy the whole day, and they'll make a big kind of tailgate party out of it all, I'm sure, kind of thing. It's great, and it's something that some fans push back against because it's just money making, all that stuff. It's not that. It's a bit of a taking the team on tour and showing how big your fan base is. We've done it in Australia, we've done it in America before, and I think there should always be something like that. Maybe Europe's an easier one closer to home. A lot of CSCs in Europe to cover as well. Yeah,
I mean, these guys do it, Paddy, for circa 50 games a season. I'm greeting about it because I have to sit up late one Saturday night. Did any of you lads stay up for it? No.
I watched some of it, but I was working at 7 the next day.
You've got an excuse. I was off. As a spectacle, though, there's a lot of positive comments coming out of it. Brendan Rodgers very pleased with just how sharp the guys are at this stage in their pre-season. This is the 3rd game, isn't it? We played Ayr United first, then Queen's Park, and now they've ramped it up a wee bit. But certain guys seem to be cooking with gas already. Matt O'Reilly's picked up where he left off by the looks of it. From some of the clips I've seen and from the opening spell of the game, I thought Nicholas Kuhn looked quite lively. But there's a couple of young guys that are getting real praise as well. So various youngsters have played across the 3 games. The latest 2 that featured was Matthew Anderson, 20-year-old left back, who was on loan at, is it Admiral Waka, as we call him, out in Austria last season. By all accounts, had a very good season for them. And Colby Donovan, can't say I'd know anything about Colby Donovan so far. 17 years of age though, he slotted in at right back in the night. And he was singled out for high praise by Brendan Rodgers, and a lot of positive noises coming out the camp, Paddy.
Yeah, and it's a great opportunity for us to kind of have a look at these guys. Are they going to be part of the team for the year? We've obviously spoke recently about the Rocco Vata and Daniel Kelly situations. So you want to give these guys a bit of a experience with the first team, a bit of exposure to first team football, and let them kind of take on what it's all about and what they can go and carve out in a career with Celtic if they want.
Yeah, absolutely. There's some good quotes from Brendan Rodgers. So he said after the game, I said to the players that this was a game for them to show technically how good they are. It was like Kilmarnock when we won the title on the Arshotoff pitch though. We have no excuses. We're here to increase our physicality and improve tactically, but technically get your first touch sorted. The first touch is a characteristic of the top player, and tonight it was really, really impressive. He sounds in a good place, James, despite the fact that he's currently working with the same kind of guys as last year.
He's generally very calm with the media and the press. Rodgers, you very seldom see him lose it. I mean, if I was him, I'd be close to losing it. Things like Anderson there, is that something that can, was he good enough to tell us he's going to challenge for a first team place, not to be around the squad, to be a first team place? Because that's the only thing that's going to change my mind in terms of what's required from a transfer point of view. And I'm sure Rodgers is the exact same. So we have to want to see 2, 3, 4 players, not just around the team, but breaking through. Like Doak was just starting to do before he went. That's what we need. So I'm sure Rodgers has been, very pleased with that, and that'll give him, a bit of calmness, but not enough that he should be as calm behind the scenes.
I think, Paddy, here, as Celtic fans, we've fallen into a trap of thinking, he's only 20, he's only 21, he's only 22. Look at Yamal for Spain, right? Good enough, you're old enough, 16 years of age, and there was various guys. Who's the guy I mentioned? Is it Arda Güler that's Real Madrid from Turkey and stuff? These guys are very young guys. These are 17, 18. Yeah, when you come in, if you're good enough, you should feature. So, listen, I'm hopeful a guy like Matthew Anderson, for example, but he's 20. And I think we're maybe a wee bit too forgiving, in Celtic world for saying, they've got plenty of time to develop. Guys, I'll get my mention now. I talk about Mikey Johnson. He's 25, but that's the headspace we fall into. And I think Celtic, they need to be braver with pitching some of these young guys in. The only way they're going to learn and the only way they're going to develop is by playing football. And listen, they might get a good loan move. By all accounts, Anderson's loan move in Austria was good for him. But sometimes you need to just pitch them in at Celtic for a couple of games and say, on you go, show me what you've got, and be braver with some of the moves you make with the youths.
So, I mean, I would, but would you both be happy to take risks in the League Cup this year? To not go for a treble and prioritise youth and play almost no more than 4 senior players should start your League Cup games and play youth all through it.
In the League Cup, I'm more than happy, I've got to be honest.
I think that's the only way you go.
I would agree with that. I think that, you definitely need some experience through the team, but I'm kind of thinking, I'm racking my brain as to why we're not seeing so many youth players being given a chance, and look at the level they're playing at when they're playing in the Lowlands League as well. I don't think that's enough for them. I don't think it's the level that they should be getting the practice in. I would like to see some more loan deals for them. I would like to see them go and try with top teams in our division, which we've seen being successful for Celtic in the past. I think at Ayr and Christie with those ones, but there does need to be a bit more of risk taking in these situations with our youth players, because as we've seen, a lot of them they cut a lonely figure if they don't get the opportunity, and if there's teams sniffing about them, there's plenty of teams that will pay more money than what Celtic will.
Yeah. I think it's important for any youth player at this moment in time at Celtic to look at the first team squad and see what's happening in a positive sense. And I think there's only so much you can go on about the very positive stories of Callum McGregor, Kieran Tierney, James Forrest and others. But Callum McGregor broke through under Ronnie Dyler. Yeah. Kieran Tierney maybe around about the same time, give or take. James Forrest even further back, 2011 I think. James Forrest came in 2010, 2011. So they're great examples of youth doing well at Celtic, but they weren't last year or the year before or even the year before that. I think these young guys, Anderson, Donovan, Bosun Lawal, anyone else that's kicking around just now, Daniel Kelly, I think they need to look forward and see who's the guy that's just ahead of them. Who's the guy that's kind of within touching distance that they were training with a couple of seasons ago. Or look, such and such has made it, then I can make it. But at the moment, I don't think there's any great poster boy for these young kids, and there's nobody particularly relevant or recent for them to aspire to. It
would make a good hour-long show, to be honest, to discuss it all, because you're kind of thinking, what's the stumbling block for a lot of these young guys? And that's a very poor turnout from Celtic over the years in terms of how many players you've just mentioned there and what we've produced. Now, are they trying to fix things with Barrafield being redeveloped and really looking at the youth side, really looking at the setup and how we are bringing our players through? I think we've been saying this for quite a while. I do, and I just think that, the 4 you have rhymed off there, all very, very good Celtic players, all made it to the right grade, but all given that chance, all risked upon, especially Kieran Tierney, probably played too much at his younger age, and you kind of see that now with his injuries. I just think that we do need to take the foot off the brake a wee bit with the youth setup.
Yeah, James, I suppose in a positive sense, it seems that the club have realised there's an issue here, and Darren O'Day being appointed as the player pathway manager leans towards that. They've seen there's an issue, but ultimately, back in the day, people didn't really talk about, is there a pathway to the first team? I think it's almost a term that's been made up again to provide some excuses. you either bring in players and develop them to be good enough for the first team, or you don't. And I know I'm simplifying it, but I fail to see what's more complex than that. What's the pathway and what's the route, and Darren O'Dea will come and smooth this route and we'll have a fancy new Barrowfield. You didn't have fancy Barrowfields 30, 40 years ago when Celtic were bringing very good, talented young guys through. And for some reason, and I do appreciate the few examples I gave there, which were good examples, most recently, there's a blockage somewhere. These guys aren't making it at Celtic.
It's twofold. It's not just a blockage, there's also a leakage in terms of these guys are getting out and getting signed for Bayern Munich and whatever, and getting 10 grand a week at 16, 17 years old. So they're taking that. So I think Celtic, who credit's due, they've been good at the corporate level, working with UEFA, getting things sorted. I think that's a loophole that needs fixed. That big clubs just scooping up youth and then just sticking them in a farm. They're not ever going to play for Bayern Munich. That's kind of got to stop. There should be X number of games or whatever it needs to be, but that's something that needs to change to stop the leakage. The blockage, I don't know. I think that goes back to if you're good enough, and there's not been enough talent of the guys who've stayed at Celtic and not taken the offers. There's not been enough talent come through. I do think the O'Dea appointment, the appointment itself, the creation of that role, is a good thing. And I don't really see why it shouldn't be O'Dea. I don't think it's just a job for boys. I think it has to be someone who has gone through Celtic's youth set up and become a Celtic player. That narrows the pool for a start. So I think it's a reasonable appointment, and I think it's a great idea as a role. It remains to be seen what that produces. But again, it's the age-old with Celtic. See if you've got a 5-year plan to develop youth. What can you tell us about it?
Exactly that. It's exactly what I was going to say. I'd love to get eyes on what Darren O'Dea's roles and responsibilities are, and why shouldn't Celtic share that with you?
It's so positive.
Why is
positive
everything
PR.
such a closely guarded? You don't need to give away your tactics in terms of maybe how you scout youth, how you get the best players,
Tell us your ambitions.
how specifically you develop them, but just give us the headlines, give us the bullet points. Darren will bring in players and he'll do X, Y, Z, and this will enable us to do A, B, C, something like that. I felt, segue here, but I filled in my fan survey today. I was in two minds whether to do it or not. It runs till Friday. It shouldn't have to be doing Celtic's PR work for them, but if you want to complete it, you've got till Friday to do so. But I was in two minds because part of me thought I could fill it in and they'll do nothing anyway, which might be a Celtic kind of thing to do. But to give them the opportunity to do so, it wouldn't be fair of us to come on and moan about various things here and not put it in the survey. So I took the time today to put it in the survey. And at different points, you're asked, what would you like to see done differently with, the Celtic Celtic TV package or with a membership, blah, blah, blah. And at one point, I think there was just a more general section. What would you like to see improved as part of Celtic overall? And I was like, where do you start? You've got 200 characters to do it with. So that's a challenge. But one thing I did state was that I just wanted more eyes, more knowledge, more transparency about the medium to long-term vision for the club. And as I say, Celtic don't need to give away their secrets as to how they do things and the various ins and outs of the football department, but just give us a broad vision, because see if people get a vision, you can get on board with the vision, you can get excited, and you can, for example, if it were an approach, you can say, I can accept not doing well in the League Cup this year because that's part of the vision, that's part of the model that allows youth players the chance to develop whilst wearing a Celtic shirt rather than being out on loan somewhere, as a small example. And there's so many other things that you would start to accept and get on board with and give a bit of patience to if you knew there was an end goal in place. But at the moment, James, we are kept in the dark about stuff like that.
Celtic see exactly what you proposed there as a negative, and it's the opposite. It's a sales pitch, and with that you buy patience, you get buy-in from the fans, you get support, and you get fans defending you instead at the moment fans getting angry and upset because they tell us nothing and they behave in certain ways that you're just not treated very well as a customer, as they would put it, So I think it's something that we have to improve upon. I don't know if Adrian Philby moving on as commercial director, does that really change that side of things? It kind of should. I'd like to see commercial and marketing working closer together. So you could see the marketing commercial teams moving forward with a message, obviously with Michael Nicholson and the rest on board, but a kind of an annual chairman CEO message that says, here's, in fact, I wouldn't do it annually, do it 5 years, tell us what you're going to do in the next 5 years, and then just go about it. And you can back in 5 years and say, we got that right, we didn't get that quite right, we're close to that one, but blah, blah, blah. It doesn't mean you need to hit everything, but it just shows you've got, the biggest thing I bet you comes up in that survey is the club does not match Celtic fans' ambitions by any stretch, or the players, or the manager. The fans, the players and the manager have the ambition, and the club do not. That has got to change.
I mean, you can put out your 3 or your 5 year vision at this moment in time, and then update us every year at the AGM, Paddy. You can give us those updates as and when they go along. As I say, thinking back to when I was completing the survey earlier on, I think my main points were communication in general needs to be better. Fill in the blanks, because otherwise people get nervous and anxious and fill them in a negative way. Celtic create that void for it to be filled negatively. They can control the messaging better, I feel. And as I say, just give us more eyes on the medium to long term plan.
The big thing with it though, guys, and we're asking for them to come out and say something, but that would then mean that potentially someone's going to be held accountable for mistakes made.
That's exactly it.
And they don't want to put their heads above it. They don't want to come out and say, here, this is the idea, this is what we were trying to do, we've failed. Because ultimately heads must roll if that's the case, and that will never happen at board level.
I don't think fans will jump on you for failing as long as you tried. See if you tried, say you set out a vision for Celtic 2030, here's what we're going to achieve by 2030, is blah blah blah, and we hit 2 out of 10, and one of the 2 is a much improved youth setup and 5 players coming through a year, or blah blah blah, and then you miss an awful lot of the others, you get close with some and you completely fail on 2 or 3. I don't think the fans jump on that as a favourite. I think you say, well, you're showing you're looking to stretch yourself. It's all about how you pitch it.
Paddy, you've said there about, Celtic wouldn't set out their stall there because ultimately that's putting the onus on someone to succeed or fail. But that's the way of the world in every other business, in every other walk of life. Why should Celtic be any different? I'm thinking, if you'd somebody like Apple or Mercedes or somewhere who set out their vision, or, this is what we're going to do, that's how it works. And generally speaking, if you're not able to do that, then let's find someone that can do that. Celtic shouldn't be walking on eggshells or dancing around folk who aren't capable. I go back to Don Mackay, and we've gone back to Don Mackay frequently, but I was there the day he gave his opening press conference along with Ange, and several times he mentioned the term about being first in class, in words to that effect. And I think Celtic should always strive to do so, and I think we do hide behind things, and I think you're right, that's maybe the reason why we don't come out with... I'd like to think there are, goals and targets and visions behind the scenes, but why are they always behind the scenes? It just seems like a very Celtic thing to do. Listen, we've got seriously distracted there. This rounds off the section about the US tour, which we started on.
Good PR stuff.
Back to that, obviously some good stuff there on the park. 4-0 win to open the campaign. Next up, we've got Man City, which is on Tuesday night at 12:30 UK time. I don't know if I'm going to make it. We'll see. And then it's Chelsea on Saturday night at 9 o'clock. So we'll see. We'll get a chance to see more of the young guys, which will be exciting. And some other guys, obviously, we'll be looking to kick on. I think of guys like Iwata, Palma, Yang, Kuhn, who are all looking to prove that they'll play a part at some point next season. So let's see how the next couple of games goes. In terms of the current squad, so the lie of the land, we've obviously covered the fact that the 2 goalies have come in, which I generally think is a good piece of business. I know you're cynical to an extent, Paddy, which I understand, but Viljami Sinisalo, I think he's getting called Phil. So Phil, whatever. So Phil has come in, and Casper, who's 37 years of age, he comes in as well. Benjamin Siegrist, we've spoken about. Just for a long time now, the writing's been on the wall, and that was never going to work out. And it looks like he's about to join Lenny over at Rapid Bucharest. My concern, and I've stressed it now a couple of times, is that we've got one recognised striker in Kyogo. I'll give you a quote here from Brendan Rodgers. He says, "My ideal scenario was to have 3 strikers, Kyogo, one other one, and to bring through a young player. That was the role we came up with for Rocco Vata. It's very difficult for a club of this size, though, to have 3 number 1 strikers. 2, I would say, to be our number 1, and 1 to develop." James, is there a danger that we're putting all the eggs in the Adam Ida basket? There's obviously ongoing negotiations and talks rumbling on. You would like to think that Celtic have got a plan B there, but we've got to be careful we don't get left high and dry. We're less than 2 weeks out from the kick-off against Kilmarnock, and to just have Kyogo going into that game, Kyogo could get injured against Man City on Tuesday night here. We need to be very careful what we're doing there.
Yeah. Celtic's MO in negotiations is have no compelling event, have no end date, just get back to me when you want, and that is a serious lack of professionalism, if you ask me. Obviously Norwich are playing hardball. It's never going to end up where they want it to end up. There's no one paying 10 million for Ida. For all he performed...
Who's asking that?
That's the talk, is they're pushing it really towards the 10 million, Norwich. And, for all, I really want us to sign him. He's not a £10 million player because he's not been playing enough football. This is Norwich, who didn't play him last season and replaced him with Sidney Van Hooijdonk, who scored, I think, 1 goal in the whole time he was with Norwich. So how can Norwich then put that kind of value in a player? It's madness, right?
It's a new manager thing.
I understand
So the
that.
manager that didn't play him last year, football is all about opinions. One guy rates you, one guy doesn't. So the guy last year didn't rate him, but they've got the new guy in who wants to get eyes on Ida, and so far he seems to have been impressed.
But that doesn't take his value from next to nothing to near 10 million.
His performances for Celtic do, but
I don't think they take him that far. I think they take him to a point, but we all want to sign him. That's one. Celtic obviously will be in communication with his agent as well, because there's open communication there going on with Norwich, so you're able to talk to the agent. It's basically, you need to be saying, look, we want your guy to sign, he wants to sign, that's the number, that's as far as we go, and it's 2 weeks on Friday or we're off, because we do need to start looking at alternatives, because it can't be this 31st of August and that one didn't work out. It's Kyogo and not Rocco Vata, some new youth coming through.
Yeah, I mean, Adam Ida scored the winner, Paddy, in the cup final almost 2 months ago. We're recording here just now on the 22nd of July. In 3 days' time, it'll be the 2-month anniversary. And in those 8 weeks or so, we don't seem to have progressed in any significant way, shape or form on that one. Or the Bernardo deal, that rumbles on, and there's talk that Celtic have now come to an agreement on the fee, meant to be around about 3.5 million, and there's a sell-on thing that they're continuing to negotiate. Is that a 2-month negotiation? Is that not something that on the 26th of May, Celtic should have started having chats about?
I think they did, and I think Celtic have been able to bring that figure down, which I can understand. He's not played enough first team football for us this season. Bernardo, sorry, yeah. And I think that it makes sense for Celtic to bring the deal down in terms of what they're paying for him. If we get Bernardo for 3.5 million plus add-ons, it's good business, absolutely. With Ida, I think the deal's dead. Personally, I do. I think it's done. I think we should be moving on and looking for someone else. And if that is the case, I would still be happy with that. I feel that Ida would bring a lot to the team, but I also think there's similar players out there that we can get for a lot less as well.
It's a valid point. I think we've got to be careful we don't get all misty-eyed about the guy that scored the winner against Rangers in the cup final, which was a brilliant moment for all concerned. He's been great for Celtic. I'd love to see him back in a Celtic shirt, but I think you're right. And Celtic need to be at the negotiating table, James, with that stance. They can't go, come on, Adam, you were great for us, please, we're desperate to have you. They need to say, we're keen to get you, here's the offer, here's the deal, here's the expiry of that offer. If you get back to us by that date, great, let's make something happen. If not, sorry, Adam, we move on to pastures new, and that's the way it works.
And surely we've got option 2, option 3.
Yes.
Because our electric scouting team are all over that, aren't they?
But this is the scary thing, we're speaking about the goalkeeper void's been filled and then some with the Finn coming in, and I think then you're then looking at all the transfer rumblings, bar the winger from Antwerp, has all been about Bernardo and Ida. Mm-hmm. There has been nothing else. Now, I know we've played our cards very close to our chests over the last few seasons. I'm okay with that when Celtic do it and they pull it out the bag, and I'm quite happy when we do act like that. But there has been nothing other than those two players mentioned, and that's the concern for me, especially with 2 weeks to go.
Yeah,
we're not capitalising on another season where we've not got qualifiers, guys, and that's really, really poor business.
The last one.
Yeah, if you go digging for the Celtic headlines, which I dare say all of us do on a daily occasion, every day since the end of the season, most of those headlines, or a lot of them certainly, have been about Bernardo and Ida. Where's the other guys? So we mentioned one of them last week. It was Michelangelo Balikwisha, but nothing's happened in the 7 days that have passed since we recorded last week. There is another rumour, Tanner Tesman, 22-year-old midfielder from the US, currently playing with Venezia. A move to Inter Milan has just fallen through. I struggle to believe that a guy that was about to sign for Inter Milan will sign for us.
They were going to loan him out, and they couldn't find a loan club that he was happy with. So there might be something you can steal there.
If I'm about to go into Milan and it breaks down, with all respect to us, I'm probably looking higher up the charts than Celtic. Yeah, if you find yourself at that level. So I think that's a hard one to believe, but that's the thing. So, Bernardo and Ida are dominating the headlines, but there's not a lot of concrete links doing the rounds under that. And actually, if we wake up tomorrow and brilliant, we've signed Ida and we've signed Bernardo, all you've done is stand still. All you've done is put two guys from last season's squad back into the squad. Yep. Where are the guys, James, to take us forward?
Two guys who played a lot of time on the bench.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Aye.
What we're crying out for, particularly based on last summer's window, where's the first team ready, guys? Who's going to come in and be my new left back, my new number 8, my new whatever?
I'm concerned, and it's not just Celtic on this occasion, it's Celtic fans as well, that there's complacency creeping in as to the state the Rangers are in. And don't get me wrong, yes they are, and that's absolutely fine. But there's a lot of thinking that, well, we're just going to scoosh the league. Everyone's saying it, media's saying it. They're going to get nowhere near us. And that permeates to the club. And could they be thinking, we're going to sign all those first team ready players, but we can probably get away with half of that. Instead of signing 8, we'll sign 4, that kind of thing. I've got a real concern that they'll take that route.
And I know you've got that concern as well, Paddy. I was chatting to you earlier on, without sounding any sort of apology. It's not an apologist. I'm just a stupid optimist at times. And is it Daniel Henderson, Daniel, a lad that comments on a lot of what we do, and he's like, come on, Tino. Like,
you'll be watching?
Because I can't believe that Celtic would be sitting, Michael Nicholson, who's Celtic mad, by the by, but I can't believe they'd be sitting going, they're in a right state. Let's just not buy that striker. Let's not buy that left back. Let's not invest. But I'd like to think there's more ambition in the building than that.
We've done that for 10 years now.
I know, but just
12 years.
He's one more year.
I know, but listen, we could comfortably go and win league after league after league after league. We could, if we put the money into it, but we hold back. We hold back. The challenge is not as strong. You guys were talking about it before we came on the show. You were speaking about what David Lowe was saying. The value of the club 10 times more than what they are. Mm-hmm. There is nothing really for them to go and say, let's go and spend X, Y, and Z and be light years ahead and do something in Europe, because what we try and do in Europe with that amount of money will still not be anywhere near a level of what you see down in England. Mm-hmm. It makes sense. We're in, it's too comfortable a position almost in a sense. But what the thing for me is that people will not settle for this. People will get bored of this, and this is the thing. They need to act on it. You guys are right. You're looking at Bernardo, you're looking at Ida. We're back to where we were last season. We've covered all the positions there. We need a left back. We need a centre half. We need probably 2 wingers, and we need another striker before this transfer window finishes. I give them a little bit of benefit of the doubt. I think Kieran Tierney was probably going to come to us again. I do, until that injury in the Euros, and now Celtic are probably saying, what are we signing if we go for him again? I give them a little bit of benefit of the doubt there, but for all those other positions, the lack of transparency for the club in terms of what they're looking to do and what they're looking to bring in is pretty worrying.
One of the biggest challenges for Celtic in recent years, in my mind, is that Celtic were accused of not pushing the boat out for Europe. But the question would be, and there's no scientific answer, but how much more would you need to spend just to finish minimum third in your group to get Europa League from the Champions League, or at a push finish in one of the top 2 places and somehow find yourself in the last 16 of the Champions League? But now, more than ever, with this revamped format, there is a real genuine opportunity, I think, for a club like Celtic to make progression. So you're obviously, we've touched on the format a few times now, but it's a 32 team league, and all you need to do, inverted commas, all you need to do is finish in the top 24 to guarantee yourself at least 2 more games in Europe. And that in itself would, if you finish between 16th and 24th, you go into a playoff to end up in the last 16 or something. I'll explain it better in a future show. But generally speaking, there's a real opportunity there. So it's like, I can understand why Celtic would be reluctant to spend, 8 million on a couple of players, 8 million plus 8 million to potentially just finish third and then go out the Europa League next time. But this is a real genuine opportunity to progress at the top level. And ultimately, it's a real opportunity to show where your ambition is, James, or where your ambitions are as a club, because we can keep doing what we're doing and chalking up league titles, and what was that, 12th out of 13, and we were together, we enjoyed it as much as anybody. It was, great end to the season. But is that it? Is that where we're at for Celtic? Or do the board, led by Michael Nicholson, need to just set the stall out and say, this is what we're looking to achieve? We're looking to make that progress in Europe, make the academy continually churn out, new talent to get excited about, and various other things.
I look at it twofold, I suppose, and primarily from, if I was in Michael Nicholson's shoes, I'd be looking at it from a financial perspective. Not how much do I need to spend to get to that, top 24, but how much do I need to spend to get the players that by default will get us top 24, but will also make us money. If I sign a guy at 7, 8, 9 million, he's got a much, much better chance, and we've proven it ourselves. He's got a much, much better chance of becoming a 15, 20, 30 million pound player than if I sign the guys at 2 and 3 million. Now, Matt Riley and others, see when they do go from 1.5 million to 25 million, we love that. But just based on the numbers, you need to go and sign maybe 6, 10, 12 of them to get 125. So if you look at it purely on the basis of signing better players and having the structures in place to develop those, and the target being always pitching these guys 2 years at Celtic, 2 years Champions League exposure, 2 years at Celtic will make you a better player than you are today, and tell me exactly what club you want to go to and we'll try and make that happen for you. We'll certainly put you the level that club's at.
The player trading model is a hugely important part of what Celtic do, and it's a huge reason why the bank balance is swelling in the way that it is. The counter to that is, so it is important, and Celtic should continue to do that. And Matt O'Reilly's a bit of an outlier. You've bought him for 1.5 and you'll sell him for around about 25. But I think generally speaking, if you're buying guys at Jota level, 6 and 7 and maybe 8, and selling them for 25, that would be more the norm, if you do it right and develop them right. The other pushback on that would be, though, if you want to genuinely progress and be a bit better in Europe next year and a bit better again the year after and a bit better again, you can't continually lose your best players, and that's the challenge.
Again, here's the benefit of setting out a longer term plan. For the next 3 years, it's going to be that kind of like in, gone. And then once you start to solidify your place, as it's at Bruges have done that for years now, once they solidified their place, they started retaining guys a bit longer. And that's when you can start to really move up the Champions League. But that's more of I would say a 10-year plan for Celtic to be able to do that kind of thing. You let the guys go in the next, say 4-year period. And after that, once you've got the finances, once you've got progress, and once you've got a bit of a reputation at Champions League, you can start to sell that to the player themselves and say, do you know what? Why don't you stay around for a 3-4 year contract and we'll make it worth your while, blah, blah. So it does change. It's not fixed.
Yeah, it's a big sell because some players, Paddy, some very talented players will go through their whole career and not play Champions League. They might play at a good level at the English Premier League or elsewhere, and they might play for a side who are really decent in the Europa, but not all players make it to Champions League level. And Celtic do have this unique situation where I don't think we're going to win it anytime soon, but we're certainly going to feature in it, but can we get to a level where we compete in it? And competing has got to be the big target in Europe for Celtic moving forward. We've touched on Matt O'Reilly a few times, and I'll stay on him for now because the reality is we're about to, have a very big Matt O'Reilly shaped hole in our midfield. We've spoken about we've just got one striker in Kyogo, one left back in Greg Taylor, but you're about to lose most likely your top man and your talisman and a guy who's become so important to what Celtic are doing. As I said earlier on, he was a captain on Saturday night against DC United, and that just shows the faith that Brendan Rodgers has got in him. A lot of players at this stage, even just glance across at James Tavernier, as soon as that transfer speculation kicks in, they take a back seat from pre-season stuff and they're away working on other things or getting their head right or whatever. Matt O'Reilly's just pitched up from day one at pre-season or when he was allowed back after his extended break and just got on with it, putting in the hard work, taking the captain's armband, not doing that whole, I don't want to get injured, I'm being careful. He's at it hammer and tongs until he's told otherwise, and I think you've got to respect that. And on that, Brendan Rodgers is quoted as saying, his attitude is first class, there's absolutely no change in Matt's demeanour or happiness. He respects and knows the privilege it is to play for Celtic. He knows what Celtic has given him and the development that's come from being here. It's not a burden for him to be at Celtic. And you've got to admire what he's doing, Paddy, just cracking on until told otherwise.
You do. I think I hadn't heard that quote for Rodgers. He kind of stole my words there. Basically, it's the respect. It's paying Celtic back for what he's been given here. And I think that, there's an element of Celtic here as well where we can hold out for what we want for him as well. We're in that position. And I think that it's very unlikely, but if it was to come to the end of the transfer window and the valuation wasn't met, we're not going to panic. We're not going to say, no, we need to get rid of him to sign X, Y and Z. That's where you look at Matt O'Reilly. Would he respect that decision? Absolutely. I think he would. If he was to play on and have a great Champions League campaign and leave us in January, he would go with everyone's well wishes. I really believe that. I do think he will go before this window, but some of the figures getting quoted nowhere near what Celtic want for him.
Yeah, just on that. So the latest figure, I think it's Fabrizio Romano, the transfer guru type guy. He's revealed that Atalanta have come in with what I think is either their second or third offer, around about €18 million, which translates to 15.1 million sterling. We can't be accepting that, but as we touched on recently, are they just taking the Celtic FC approach to negotiating? Go low ball and chip it up from there?
15.2, 15.3.
I mean, Celtic should be looking for around about 25, so they're not even close.
Absolutely 25. And they know that, and Celtic have put that out, to the network and the agents. Everyone knows what it's going to take to get Matt O'Reilly away from Celtic, so if you're not going to come in at that number, don't waste your time.
I think that if it keeps hovering like that, he's then basically got this Champions League campaign to go and bring that up to that 25 million figure, and he will.
And I think Atletico Madrid have shown that players can and will move for those kind of figures in January.
Yeah.
So it's not a disaster for Matt O'Reilly or for Celtic for a move not to happen this summer. The big plus if he doesn't move from a personal point of view is, well, I've got 8 games in the Champions League here, so let's go and enjoy it.
And we've got him for the first half of the season.
At a price where he's adored. So let's see what happens there. A couple of other kind of bits and bobs. I was, generally speaking, going to ask about, what I see at the moment as a lack of ambition in Europe, but we've touched on that in a way. But just to cover it very briefly again, James, do you feel that Celtic as a board are too busy benchmarking themselves against Rangers? We're benchmarking ourselves in the wrong way. If so, we should be pitching ourselves against the likes of maybe Porto, Ajax. I know they had a bad season last year, but generally speaking, teams that do well in a 2-horse race, but then also do well in Europe.
I mean, I think it comes from a good place. These guys are all Celtic fans. They're clever people. They know what they're doing. I think it's just a bit of a misread or an inability to see alternatives. Paddy's touched on it there. Celtic have this fear that if you don't have your domestic competition, then fans aren't going to show up, right? So we're not going to spend 100 million in the transfer window. Right? We've got 100 million in the bank, we're not going to spend that on players because we'd be too far away for Rangers. That competition goes away anyway if you're winning 10, 12, 15, 20 in a row. Celtic winning 20 in a row is laughable and realistic. That's the way I look at that. We're 10 times what Rangers are. They're shambolic on and off the park. They go through managers like you wouldn't believe. Celtic have to just at least look into that as a possibility. What happens if we don't spend the money and we keep winning the league anyway? Fans going to just go, well, do you know what? I'm not going to buy a season ticket. I'll still go to the games now and then, but I'm not buying a season ticket. I'll catch the odd one online, on the telly or whatever kind of thing. And I'll maybe go away to Europe instead this season. So they would end up with the same diminished returns in terms of season books. So why not take a different approach and find your new rivals in the Champions League?
Yeah, it's a really good way to put it. Find your new rivals. Do you know, interestingly, I'll go back to the survey. One of the questions was, if there was an online pay-per-view option available to you, would you potentially choose that rather than attend games? And I think modern football's changing in such a way that might very well become a possibility for some folk. And some folk might say, I know it costs a lot of money for a season ticket, you're to and fro and there's different things going on in life. Maybe I'll just take the online season ticket or whatever that becomes.
I mean, you speak to the wrong guy.
Aye, true. Non-season ticket holder guy here.
But that is the point in the protest. I'd much rather be at the game than watching the telly, 100%, particularly those Wednesday nights in December and January. Aye. They're my favourites. But I would, because it's not just, it's the people you meet, it's what you do pre-post match, it's the experience of the whole day. No, I think that there's different types of football fans. There's guys who are just as big fans as the guys who go to games and watch it on telly, but there's guys who go for the experience of going to the game, and I don't think your season ticket numbers drop. I think someone's got that mentality, they'll always go.
I remember, I think it was in January, getting absolutely drenched at the Bucky Thistle game, Paddy. I didn't see this guy next to me.
Missed that one.
Aye. Couldn't make it. Paddy, Brendan Rodgers here for 20 in a row. Is that what we're going to see?
We'll be lucky to get another season, guys, at this rate.
You are hearing a lot of, not to focus too much on Rangers, but they don't seem to be in a great place at this moment in time. Booed off at half time in a friendly against Man United under 19s.
After beating up a load of cricketers.
Aye, I've seen that as well. Things aren't great there, and we can enjoy that, right? But Celtic's board shouldn't be glancing in any way across the city for how to benchmark themselves on or off the park, should they?
Certainly not. They've got a job to do. As I said, we look at that campaign in the Champions League, bar the mauling from Atletico over there, I actually thought it was a decent display from us. The nearly men, I would say. Let's just get that level up again and really just get the head down and go for it. It's a different kind of campaign. It's one-off matches, which I don't really like, to be honest. I like a two-tie affair. But let's go and really put ourselves about, make a name for ourselves in the European front. I think this season as well, you look at the competition in this tournament, there are definitely teams that we can go and beat, but we need to be at our best. Yeah. We really need to be at our best. And I feel that we're a weaker team than last season at the moment. and we need to address it quickly.
Yeah, I think you're spot on with the nearly men stuff. There's a kind of saying in football or any competitive sport, you can exist, then you can compete, and then you can win. And I think Celtic at times did compete last season, but save for the win on match day 6, we didn't go over the line in terms of winning games that really mattered. I'm really intrigued by the new format though. So as we know, you get 8 separate games against 8 separate teams. So, you don't have the home and away situation. But a big plus will be, so Celtic will most likely be a pot 4 side, but it means you also face another pot 4 side, which is certainly one game out there that you should have a proper chance of winning, save for the other 7. So I think that's what's really interesting and exciting about it. To round things up, I want to touch on an episode that we put out last week, and it kind of covers a few of the things we've mentioned, and you've touched on who it is, Paddy. It was David Lowe. So we spoke to David Lowe during last week. David, most people will know as Fergus McCann's right-hand man. He was there for everything during the 94 takeover, and we obviously cover a lot of that in detail during the Battle to Save Celtic series, and there is an individual episode with David on that. But James, we've spoken quite a lot of detail this week about various things going on in terms of the financial and business side of the club that David is very close to. That's just his world. And one of the headlines that came out was him saying that Rangers are closer to Hearts financially than they are to Celtic, and you can gloat about that and enjoy that as such. However, the lack of competition, generally speaking, isn't a good thing. And some people, you can interpret that whatever way you want, and in this world and online people do so, and they're saying, we don't need Rangers and F them, F that and stuff like that. He wasn't saying we need Rangers specifically, but what he was saying, and I've got to agree with it, is we do need better domestic competition, because it's very, very hard to go from playing against what at times is certainly run-of-the-mill domestic opposition and then going to Atletico Madrid. That's not an easy shift to make Saturday to Wednesday. So, you know what, you've listened to the episode. What was your take on that?
That specific point?
Yeah.
I certainly don't think, in fact, I'd be very, very sure he wasn't saying we need a strong Rangers. I think he was just speaking broadly as, sporting terms, competition makes for interest, makes for fans, makes for season tickets, makes for revenue. That's just, goes kind of hand in glove. As to where that comes from, I'd love it to be from Aberdeen and Hibs, less so Hearts, definitely not Rangers. But it's going to be more likely Rangers than anyone else. So by default, Rangers are likely to be your next best competitors, but they're not. But they're also not. There's such a chasm. The only reason people think there's competition between Celtic and Rangers is because the media say it's a 1 in 2 chance of winning the league. It's not. It's absolutely not. It's a 18 of 24. We've won the league.
I guarantee you'll see this within the next fortnight. So before the kick-off of the new season, you get the various papers, the Record and otherwise, who say, we've spoken to our top guys, our top pundits, and here's who's going to win the league this year. And there's maybe a dozen guys rolled out, and at least half of them say Rangers. Nah. Despite the fact that for the last 13 years, Celtic have dominated 12 out of 13.
I think this will be the first season when that's not the case, because of their...
It should be the case, but let's see. You get the guys that just kind of take off the blinkers, and they're just like, man, I think Rangers are... I know they're not doing great just now, but I just think they'll come good.
Which is a lot of their fans as well. A lot of their fans are the ones that will say that, will always back their team at the beginning of the season, but I don't think I've seen so many turn around and say how worried they are about this season as well. But listen, I'm bringing it back to Celtic because this is the Celtic exchange. It's up to us to make sure that we're ready to go and run away with it then. It's up to us to make sure that we're ready to go and compete in Europe, and it's up to us to make sure that we've got a youth setup that is going to work for us this season as well if we need it. There's still a lot for our board to really look at, and it's still a lot for our board to be held accountable for.
One of the biggest questions that came out of the episode with David, and we covered it in depth, and it effectively, the episode was called Who Owns Celtic and Are We at Risk from a Rogue Takeover? We've obviously seen a lot of stuff happening with clubs like Newcastle and Everton and Saudi money in football and that side of things. And David gave a bit of the background on who currently owns Celtic, Dermot Desmond, majority shareholder, a bit of the history leading up to that and what the future could look like. He touched on an interesting point which I wasn't aware of in terms of when Fergus moved on in 1999. His big plan was to sell his shares back to the fans. He didn't want fan ownership per se, but he wanted a blend, a balance of fan ownership and others in place. And ultimately there wasn't a huge take-up at that time. Obviously there was a big share issue in 94, 95. And at that point fans to an extent had been exhausted. And I think Dermot Desmond wanted to swoop in and take all of Fergus's shares. And I believe there was a bit of a fallout. McCann didn't want that to happen, and there was a bit of niggling and a bit of tension, and ultimately Dermot Desmond did increase his shareholding, but not by as much as he wanted to do so. But ultimately the position remains that I think Dermot Desmond owns just less than 40% of Celtic, and then it's a group called Linsell Train, who own something in the teens, maybe 15%. And the danger is, and will always be, Paddy, Celtic aren't unique in this, but the danger is that some billionaire comes along from whichever part of the world with potentially unscrupulous morals and says, I'm going to make you an offer you can't refuse, and I'm now going to be the new owner of Celtic. Is that a concern for you? You know, somebody, I'll play devil's advocate, but somebody in the comments said, I couldn't care less who owns Celtic, you know, some Saudi guy or whatever, as long as we're beating Rangers and progressing the Champions League. Is that how you feel?
No, absolutely not. If anything was like that to happen, if we were bought over by a Saudi, no, it just doesn't wash with me at all.
You going to support St Rocks?
That'd be fun.
Until they're bought over.
Do you have concerns though? Like, you know, at the moment, part of that chat with David came out of the fact that Ross Desmond, son of Dermot Desmond, spoke at the AGM in November and said, paraphrasing, but said that as long as me and my father are still living, we will never sell our shares in Celtic. And David said, from his experience in the world of finance, that's always true till it's not true. Mm-hmm. I think he had a relationship with Doug Ellis, the former chairman of Aston Villa, who said, I'm not selling. How much? All right, we'll sell. Yeah. And that's how that kind of works. So do you have a fear that Celtic may fall into the wrong hands at some point?
It just depends on the competition. I think that, if there's success in this Champions League format, brilliant, but the Super League hasn't gone away. And I do believe that Celtic and Rangers are highly thought of to be a part of that as well. It was at the Court of Arbitration said that there's no wrongdoing in what the operation of it is trying to put forward. So I think the major leagues, I think the big clubs involved with UEFA at the moment, will see how this new format goes. If it looks after them, if the TV deals are right, if the winning jackpot's right, then it probably will continue. But if it doesn't work, if it's a failure, which the Champions League has been declining a lot lately, then I can see the Super League coming in. And I think that, as I say, if Celtic and Rangers are included in that, we're lucrative. People will want to buy us, 100%.
Yeah, in the new Champions League format that we've spoken of there, it's the last throw of the dice, isn't it, to make it exciting again? Because I know it sounds bizarre, but you were getting bored of Real Madrid v Bayern Munich and the likes. It become a wee bit stale there in recent years. So
that's what the Super League's trying to engineer, that the same teams play the same teams.
Money talks at the end of the day, though, so we'll need to see. James, the last point on the episode with David Lowe was the influx of American owners in the Scottish Premiership. I think there's 4 clubs now that have got American owners. St Johnstone are the most recent, the 2 Dundee clubs and Hibs. And I asked the question of David, how do these guys ever expect to make money? And I think the short answer was they don't and they won't. It's a bit of a play thing. So that's a challenge. Somebody might invest in Celtic for sport, just for the fun of it. Or somebody might see some changes, whether it's, Super League or otherwise, and see a genuine opportunity to turn a coin. But I suppose it's the great unknown, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's as dangerous, if not more so, than an unscrupulous owner. Somebody just coming in as a plaything and just doesn't give it the due care and attention it requires. Celtic's a big operation, turning over £100 million a year. It can't be something that's just played around with, It could happen, but I think it'd be more likely to happen someone who's got a genuine passion and interest in Celtic, a very wealthy, overseas person that's got an interest in Celtic. I don't really see him coming in as just messing about with it.
So final question, better the devil stick with Dermot?
Let me see the options. Let me see the actual options.
Don't have that info right now for you. Yeah. But interesting episode with David, and that's available now on YouTube, or you can visit the CelticExchange.com for all the links. Final point for today, Paddy, as such, don't know if you're interested or not, the new away strip was released. Any thoughts?
Don't
Good,
like it.
bad?
I don't like it. I don't like it.
But
I've been quite negative today. I'm not meaning this, guys, but I don't like it.
I never liked the bright yellow ones.
No, I like the one under Dyla with the green stripes across it. I quite like that one, but this one is... it's yellow.
You say you don't like it, you buying it?
No. I've bought my merch.
I'm sure my full of 3 copies, having the 2 last, so we'll see. Paddy, good to have you back on the show. Your final comments for the week?
Yeah, really good to be back. I've missed it. I was ready for the break. I think May tired us all out, as we spoke about. Probably more so the hangovers more than anything. But just really excited for the season to kick off. I'm hopeful that this week we start to see a bit more movement. And I do think that there are still some players that we need to offboard.
Big time.
But I think that for me, it's now just getting to the exciting bit again. Flag Day coming up in less than 2 weeks. You're then looking forward to this new draw, the new setup for the Champions League, who you're going to face, an away game in January. Can't wait for that as well. You know, January's one of those months, but you don't have a lot to look forward to. We do now. Sorry, Kate. But it's exciting. It's always. Listen, I love every single season with Celtic. I love Scottish football. I'm really happy to see a bit more interest with media companies. I think Premier Sports taking the 20 games is great for Scottish football as well. And just interesting to see, you know, what teams do a bit of business as well. You're looking at like some Motherwell have put a bit of money about now, considering the money they made for Theo Bayer. Hibs still haven't done much. And then
Hearts beat them.
Aye, I seen that, and then I think Aberdeen. I think they'll be a stronger outfit this season as well.
Ones to watch.
But Hearts, wee Stevie says, you know, it's worth watching them and see what they do against Rangers this season as well.
Yeah, opening day, Tynecastle, Hearts v Rangers. James, as Paddy says, there's lots to get excited about in the season ahead, and there always is. But there's a few kind of changes this season which could be particularly exciting. But less than 2 weeks out, I suppose the big hope ultimately is that Celtic meet things halfway and do, you know, meet their end of the bargain.
Yeah, we're miles away from where we need to be.
4 out of 10, a guy once said.
Yeah. Aye, absolutely miles away. The issue is, you know, starting with the pretty much the same team that finished the season, which we knew needed serious surgery. So you're going to play the first 2, 3, 4 games with that, and then do a lot of work at the tail end of the window, which, you know, I just never think is ideal. I think we could do better. But it is what it is, so let's just get done when we can get done and get the season started. The big thing for me is Euros were interesting, but it's not real football. The real stuff starts in 2 weeks.
Exactly. You know, as soon as Spain scored that winner, all eyes turned to Celtic, didn't it? But let's see. I've been saying this for a couple of weeks now, and again to Daniel Henderson, let's see what they do in the next 7 days. Let's hope we're not back here again this time next Monday. So that wraps things up on this latest pre-season special. Thanks to Paddy and James for joining me, and thanks to you for tuning in. If you enjoy what we do and want to support the Celtic Exchange, then visit the celticexchange.supercast.com right now to see how you can do so. But in the meantime, as always, thanks for tuning in. We'll see you again very soon.